As the Roman legionaries continue their disciplined march, the camera pans upwards, revealing the sprawling city of Rome in all its glory. The viewer is taken through the bustling streets, where merchants shout their wares, citizens rush between shops, and senators in their pristine togas walk with purpose toward the Senate House. This is the beating heart of an empire, a city that was once a mere collection of huts, now transformed into the most powerful and advanced civilization of the ancient world. Towering above the city stands the Temple of Jupiter, its marble pillars gleaming in the midday sun, a reminder of the divine favor that the Romans believed protected their city. But beneath the surface of this grandeur, there is a darker truth, a truth rooted in blood, rivalry, and divine prophecy. Rome's foundation is tied to one of the most famous legends in history, the tale of Romulus and Remus. Long before these streets were laid, before the marble temples were erected, there was only wilderness. Abandoned as infants, the twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, were left to die, victims of palace intrigue and royal betrayal. Yet, the gods had other plans. They were rescued by a she-wolf, a symbol of both savagery and protection, who nursed them until they were found by a shepherd who raised them as his own. From these humble and almost mythological beginnings, the fate of Rome was set into motion. As the brothers grew, so did their ambitions. They dreamed of building a city that would stand the test of time. But even the closest bonds can be shattered by ambition. In a moment of heated dispute over who would rule this new city, Romulus struck down his brother Remus. With Remus' blood staining the earth, Romulus laid the foundations of what would become the greatest empire of the ancient world. From that moment, the city of Rome would be marked by a relentless drive for power, conquest, and domination. And yet, it was also cursed by the same ambition and conflict that had claimed Remus' life. The camera shifts again, this time to the outskirts of Rome, where the sprawling countryside hints at the vastness of the empire. We see the boundaries of this once small village begin to expand beyond the hills, across rivers, and into far-flung territories. From humble beginnings, Rome grew. First, it conquered its neighbors in Italy, then the Mediterranean, and soon, the entire known world bowed to its might. But with every conquest came new challenges, new enemies, and new internal strife. And so, we ask, how did a small village born from the myth of two brothers grow into the most powerful empire in history? What was it about Rome that allowed it to rise so far? And what forces led to its eventual decline? The answers lie not only in the political maneuverings of its leaders or the strength of its armies, but in the very fabric of Roman society. Its relentless ambition, its insatiable hunger for power, and its ultimate inability to contain the forces of greed, corruption, and division from within. What drove the Roman Republic to transform into an empire? How did figures like Julius Caesar, Augustus, and Nero shape the fate of the empire? And more importantly, what can we learn from the rise and fall of Rome in our own modern world? These questions will guide us through the tumultuous history of a civilization that seemed destined to rule forever but ultimately succumbed to its own internal chaos. The stage is set. The rise of Rome is a tale of ambition and power, but its fall is a warning. A reminder that even the greatest empires can crumble under the weight of their own excesses. Welcome to the story of Rome, the eternal city, whose legacy still shapes the world we live in today. Stay with us as we unravel the mysteries behind the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. After the legendary foundation of Rome, the city did not immediately transform into an empire. Instead, it entered a long period of growth and development under a new form of government, the Roman Republic. This was an era marked by incredible political innovation, military conquest, and internal strife. The Republic, established in 509 BC after the overthrow of the last Roman king, was built on the idea that no single person should hold too much power. At its core was a complex system of checks and balances designed to prevent tyranny. Rome's citizens were divided into two primary groups: the patricians, who were the wealthy elite, and the plebeians, the common people. Each had their own role in this new republic, but tensions between the two classes would eventually shape the political and social landscape of Rome for centuries. The government of the Republic was centered around the Senate, a body made up of Rome's aristocratic families. The Senate held significant power over both domestic and foreign policy, but it was the consuls who were at the top of the political hierarchy. Two consuls were elected each year to serve as the executive heads of the government, commanding the military and presiding over the Senate. The purpose of having two consuls was to prevent any one person from gaining too much control, a lesson Rome had learned from its experience with kings. Alongside the Senate and consuls, the Roman Republic also had various assemblies that allowed citizens to vote on laws and elect magistrates. This intricate balance of power was a key feature of the Republic and ensured that political control was spread among different institutions, avoiding the concentration of power that could lead to dictatorship. However, while this system of governance helped Rome grow in strength, it was not without its flaws. As Rome expanded its influence, conquering neighboring cities and eventually dominating the entire Italian peninsula, the Republic faced significant internal challenges. The patricians, who controlled the Senate, held most of the political power, while the plebeians, the majority of the population, found themselves increasingly marginalized. Over time, this inequality sparked social and political conflict. The plebeians began to demand greater representation and protection from abuses by the patricians. This led to the establishment of the tribunes of the plebs, officials elected to represent the plebeians and defend their interests. The struggle between these two classes would define much of the political landscape of the Republic, planting the seeds of instability that would eventually contribute to its downfall. While Rome was dealing with these internal divisions, it was also expanding its power beyond Italy. Through a series of wars and strategic alliances, Rome gradually extended its control across the Mediterranean. One of the most significant conflicts during this period was the Punic Wars against Carthage, a powerful city-state located in modern-day Tunisia. The most famous of these wars was the Second Punic War, in which the Carthaginian general Hannibal famously crossed the Alps with his army, including war elephants, to invade Italy. Though Hannibal won several major victories, he was ultimately defeated, and Rome emerged as the dominant power in the Mediterranean. With the defeat of Carthage and the acquisition of its territories, Rome secured vast wealth and resources, further solidifying its position as a military and economic powerhouse. But as Rome's influence grew, so did the pressures on its political system. The Republic, which had been designed to govern a city-state, struggled to manage an empire. Wealth from the conquests flowed into the hands of the elite, creating a growing divide between the rich and poor. The plebeians, who had fought in Rome's wars and now returned to a city controlled by a small group of aristocrats, were increasingly discontent. This disparity created fertile ground for ambitious leaders to challenge the existing order. It was in this context that one of Rome's most famous figures, Julius Caesar, rose to prominence. Caesar was a brilliant general and politician, known for his charisma and military genius. His conquest of Gaul, which spanned modern-day France and Belgium, made him incredibly popular with the Roman people and his soldiers. But it also alarmed the Senate, who feared his growing power. Caesar's military campaigns were not just about expanding Rome's borders, they were also about expanding his own influence. With each victory, Caesar secured the loyalty of his troops and increased his personal wealth, all while cultivating a reputation as Rome's greatest military hero. However, his ambition brought him into direct conflict with the Senate, particularly with Pompey, once his ally, now his rival. The conflict between Caesar and the Senate culminated in a civil war. In 49 BC, Caesar famously crossed the Rubicon River, defying the Senate's orders to disband his army. This bold move marked the beginning of the end for the Roman Republic. After years of civil war, Caesar emerged victorious, but his triumph came at a cost. In 44 BC, he was assassinated by a group of senators who feared that he intended to become a king. The assassination of Caesar plunged Rome into further chaos, leading to the rise of his adopted heir, Octavian, and the eventual transformation of the Republic into the Roman Empire. The rise of the Roman Republic is a story of political ingenuity, military conquest, and social struggle. From the overthrow of kings to the establishment of a system designed to limit power, Rome's republic was a remarkable achievement in governance. Yet, the very forces that made Rome great, ambition, conquest, and the desire for power, also set the stage for its downfall. The Republic may have fallen, but its legacy, the institutions it created, and the figures it produced, continue to shape the world today. In the heart of the Roman Senate, the tension is palpable. Julius Caesar, triumphant after his victories in Gaul and the Civil War, walks into the Senate chambers on the fateful day of March 15, 44 BC, the Ides of March. As he steps forward, unaware of the conspiracy swirling around him, the senators, many of whom were once his allies, suddenly surround him. Caesar, caught off guard, is stabbed repeatedly by those he trusted. His eyes, once filled with the ambition to reshape Rome, now turn to Brutus, one of his closest friends and protégés. "Et tu, Brute?" The words echo through the halls, not just as an expression of betrayal but as a final realization that his vision for Rome would die with him. The assassination of Julius Caesar is a pivotal moment, marking the end of the Roman Republic and setting in motion events that would lead to the birth of an empire. In the immediate aftermath of Caesar's murder, Rome is plunged into chaos. The Senate believed that by eliminating Caesar, they could restore the Republic's old balance of power. But they had underestimated the consequences. The assassination sparked civil war, as Rome's political factions fought for control. At the center of this power struggle was Octavian, Caesar's grandnephew and adopted heir. At just 19 years old, Octavian was thrust into the political arena, but he proved to be far more capable than anyone expected. Aligning himself with Caesar's loyal general Mark Antony and the wealthy politician Lepidus, the three formed the Second Triumvirate, a political alliance designed to defeat Caesar's assassins and restore order to Rome. However, as they consolidated their power, it became clear that their alliance was fragile and temporary. The tension between Octavian and Mark Antony grew as both men vied for control of Rome's future. Antony's romantic and political alliance with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, further divided the Roman elite, who saw it as a betrayal of Rome's interests. The rivalry between Octavian and Antony culminated in the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, where Octavian's forces decisively defeated Antony and Cleopatra's combined army. With their defeat, Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt, where they both eventually committed suicide. This victory left Octavian as the unchallenged ruler of Rome, and in 27 BC, he was granted the title of Augustus, becoming Rome's first emperor. The Roman Republic, in all but name, was over. From the ashes of civil war and political strife, the Roman Empire was born. Augustus wasted no time in reshaping Rome. As emperor, he implemented a series of sweeping reforms that would lay the foundation for the empire's dominance over the ancient world. Politically, he maintained the appearance of a republic by keeping the Senate and other republican institutions intact, but the real power rested in his hands. He was careful to avoid the title of king or dictator, knowing how such titles had doomed his predecessors, but his control was absolute. Augustus reformed the Roman army, establishing a professional standing army that was loyal to the emperor rather than individual generals. He also expanded Rome's borders, securing new provinces and strengthening the empire's defenses along the Rhine and Danube rivers, while solidifying Roman rule in Egypt, Syria, and Hispania. Augustus' reign marked the beginning of a period known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, an era of relative stability and prosperity that would last for over 2 centuries. Under his leadership, Rome flourished not just militarily but culturally and architecturally. Augustus initiated massive building projects that transformed the city of Rome into a marvel of the ancient world. "I found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble," Augustus famously declared. Among his most significant projects was the Era Pacis, a monument dedicated to peace, and the reconstruction of the Roman Forum, the political and cultural heart of the city. His policies fostered economic growth, stabilized the empire's vast territories, and promoted trade throughout the Mediterranean. Rome, under Augustus, was at the height of its power. The empire stretched from the deserts of Egypt to the forests of Germania, from the Atlantic coast of Hispania to the Euphrates River in the east. With the empire secure, Augustus turned his attention to solidifying his legacy. He carefully managed the succession of power, ensuring that the transition to future emperors would be smooth. His reforms would outlast him, creating a blueprint for governance that future emperors would follow. Even the calendar was shaped by his reign, as the month of August was named in his honor, a testament to his lasting impact on Roman life and culture. But beneath the surface of this golden age, the seeds of the empire's eventual decline were already being sown. While Augustus had succeeded in consolidating power and ensuring peace, the transition from republic to empire came with its own set of challenges. The concentration of power in the hands of one individual, though effective under Augustus, would prove dangerous in the hands of less capable or more tyrannical rulers. Rome's stability depended on the character of its emperors, and as history would soon show, not all of Augustus' successors would be as wise or as cautious. The Colosseum, built in the years following Augustus' death, stands as a symbol of the grandeur of the empire at its peak. Gladiatorial games, public executions, and spectacles of unimaginable scale were held here, designed to entertain and appease the masses. The construction of this monumental arena showcased the engineering prowess of the Romans and their desire to project power and control. It was a time when Rome's territories stretched across 3 continents, a time when the empire seemed invincible. But, as the emperors grew more decadent and Rome's enemies pressed harder at its borders, the cracks in this mighty empire would begin to show. The assassination of Julius Caesar marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. The Republic, with its ideals of shared power and governance, gave way to the empire, ruled by a single, all-powerful leader. Augustus' reign ushered in a time of prosperity, But his reforms also laid the groundwork for a system that, while powerful, was fragile. Rome under Augustus reached unparalleled heights, but as the empire grew, so too did the pressures that would eventually lead to its decline. The streets of ancient Rome were alive with a constant hum of activity, reflecting the vibrant and complex society that made the city the beating heart of an empire. The bustling markets or fora were the center of daily life, where plebeians, Rome's lower class, and patricians, the elite, mingled in the crowded streets. Vendors loudly advertised their goods, selling everything from fresh produce and meats to luxury items like silks and spices imported from distant lands across the empire. The smells of baked bread, olive oil, and roasted meats filled the air, mixing with the noise of haggling and chatter. Amid the hustle and bustle, Roman citizens could also be found visiting public baths, known as thermae, where they bathed, exercised, socialized, and conducted business deals. These baths were not just places of cleanliness but hubs of social interaction, where politics, gossip, and the affairs of the city were discussed. The plebeians, who made up the majority of Rome's population, lived modestly, often crowded into insulae, which were multi-storied apartment buildings that could be poorly constructed and prone to collapse or fires. Life in the insulae was difficult, with little privacy and basic amenities, but the plebeians found solace in public events, festivals, and most famously, the games of the Colosseum. In contrast, the patricians enjoyed lives of luxury. They resided in grand domus, houses equipped with lavish atriums, private gardens, and intricate mosaics. Their days were filled with banquets, political discussions, and patronage, where they would sponsor artists, politicians, and poets in exchange for loyalty and prestige. Despite the vast differences in wealth and social standing, the Roman people were bound together by a shared cultural identity, which was reinforced through public life, religion, and entertainment. One of the most iconic elements of Roman cultural life was the gladiatorial games, held in the Colosseum, the grand amphitheater that could seat up to 50,000 spectators. These games were not just spectacles of violence but a reflection of Rome's power and dominance. The gladiators, often slaves or prisoners of war, were trained to fight to the death in front of roaring crowds. The bloodshed was both entertainment and a reminder of Rome's military might. The Colosseum also hosted animal hunts, public executions, and naval battles, where the arena would be flooded with water for grand naval reenactments. These spectacles served a political purpose as well. Emperors and politicians used the games to gain favor with the populace, providing free entertainment as a means of distracting the masses from social and political issues. Panem et circenses, bread and circuses, became a common phrase, signifying the way in which Rome's leaders placated the people through food handouts and public entertainment, ensuring their loyalty and quelling potential unrest. Beyond the blood and spectacle, religion played a central role in the lives of Romans. The Roman pantheon of gods was vast, with deities overseeing every aspect of life, from agriculture to war. The Romans were deeply superstitious, believing that their fortunes, both as individuals and as a society, were tied to the favor of the gods. Jupiter, the king of the gods, was worshipped as the protector of the state, while Mars, the god of war, symbolized Rome's militaristic nature. Venus, the goddess of love, and Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, also held significant places in Roman culture. Temples dedicated to these gods were scattered throughout the city, and sacrifices were made regularly to ensure divine favor. Religion and politics were deeply intertwined, with public officials often serving as high priests, and major political decisions, including wars and alliances, were frequently made based on omens and the interpretation of signs from the gods. The gods were not distant figures but integral parts of daily life, influencing everything from personal decisions to state affairs. Roman mythology was equally influential, with tales of gods, heroes, and monsters shaping Roman values and traditions. Myths like the story of Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome, reinforced ideals of strength, bravery, and sacrifice. The Romans believed that their empire had a divine origin and that they were destined to rule the world, a belief that justified their conquests and their often brutal subjugation of other peoples. Festivals like the Saturnalia celebrated these myths, turning the city into a place of revelry, where social norms were appended and even slaves could share in the festivities. Through these celebrations, the Romans felt a connection not only to the gods but to their ancestors and the legendary figures who had built the foundations of their empire. However, as the centuries passed, a new religious force began to rise in Rome: Christianity. What had started as a small sect in the eastern provinces of the empire gradually spread, attracting converts from all classes of Roman society. At first, Christians were persecuted for their refusal to worship the Roman gods and for what was seen as their rejection of Roman traditions. The emperors Nero and Diocletian were infamous for their brutal crackdowns on Christians, with many being executed in the Colosseum, where they were thrown to wild animals or burned alive. Despite this persecution, Christianity continued to grow, offering a message of hope, salvation, and eternal life that resonated with many, especially the poor and disenfranchised. The turning point came with the reign of Constantine the Great, who, in 312 AD, after reportedly seeing a vision of the Christian cross before a major battle, converted to Christianity. Constantine's conversion led to the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, which granted religious tolerance to Christians and allowed them to practice their faith openly. Over time, Christianity went from being a persecuted minority to the official religion of the Roman Empire, fundamentally altering the religious and cultural landscape of Rome. The temples of the old gods fell into disuse, and churches began to rise in their place. The spread of Christianity marked the decline of traditional Roman religious practices and reshaped the empire's identity, as Rome transitioned from a polytheistic society to a Christian one. Life in ancient Rome was a rich tapestry of public spectacle, religious devotion, and social interaction. From the bustling streets and markets to the grandeur of the Colosseum and the quiet reverence of temples, every aspect of Roman life was imbued with a sense of power, tradition, and continuity. Yet, as Christianity took hold, the city's cultural and religious fabric began to change, leading to a transformation that would ultimately shape the future of Rome and the Western world. As the Roman Empire reached its zenith, cracks began to form beneath its seemingly indomitable surface. The grandeur of its cities, the power of its legions, and the wealth from its vast territories could not mask the growing internal rot. The first signs of decline were subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but over time they became impossible to ignore. At the heart of Rome's struggles lay deep-seated corruption, political infighting, and a weakening of the very institutions that had once made the empire strong. One of the most significant factors contributing to Rome's downfall was internal corruption and political disorder. The Roman Senate, once a powerful and respected governing body, became increasingly ineffective and riddled with self-interest. Senators who were once expected to act in the best interest of the Republic, or later the Empire, began to use their positions for personal gain. Bribery, nepotism, and outright corruption became commonplace, as political offices were sold to the highest bidder. Ambitious generals, hungry for power, saw the weakness of the Senate as an opportunity to seize control. These military leaders, such as Sulla, Pompey, and Julius Caesar in earlier periods, set a dangerous precedent by marching their armies on Rome itself, using force to settle political disputes. This power struggle between the Senate and the military elite destabilized the empire, weakening the central authority and plunging Rome into cycles of civil war. As the political system faltered, economic and social problems began to intensify. One of the most pressing issues was the empire's reliance on grain imports to feed its ever-growing population, especially the urban masses in Rome. Grain shipments, particularly from the provinces of Egypt and North Africa, were vital to sustaining the city, but disruptions in supply, whether due to piracy, poor harvests, or mismanagement, often led to food shortages and unrest. The empire's vast wealth was concentrated in the hands of a small elite, creating a staggering divide between the rich and the poor. The plebeians and lower-class citizens suffered from high unemployment, as the use of slave labor became increasingly widespread, leaving many free citizens without work. This growing economic disparity led to social tension and discontent, which Rome's leaders attempted to quell through bread and circuses, providing free grain and entertainment to distract the masses from their worsening conditions. Moreover, the burden of maintaining such a vast empire took its toll on the provinces. Rome relied heavily on the taxes and resources extracted from its territories, but as these demands grew, so did the resentment of the provincial populations. The taxation system became more oppressive over time, with local administrators often exploiting their positions to line their own pockets, further draining the wealth of the provinces. This overtaxation, combined with the growing economic strain within the empire itself, created a situation where both the center and the periphery of the empire were suffering. Additionally, the costs of maintaining Rome's vast military machine became unsustainable. The legions, stationed across the empire's borders, required immense resources, and as the empire expanded, so too did the financial and logistical challenges of defending it. While Rome struggled with its internal issues, it faced an even greater threat from external pressures: the barbarian invasions. The empire's borders, which once seemed impregnable, began to buckle under the weight of continuous assaults by various Germanic tribes and other nomadic peoples. The Goths, Vandals, Huns, and Franks all played a role in destabilizing Rome's frontiers. These barbarian groups were often motivated by the search for more fertile lands, the allure of Roman wealth, or pressure from other migrating tribes. Initially, Rome was able to repel many of these incursions, either through military might or by integrating these tribes into the empire as foederati, allied tribes allowed to settle within the empire in exchange for military service. However, this policy came with its own risks, as these tribes often retained their own leaders, customs, and loyalties, which undermined Roman authority. One of the most significant blows came with the crossing of the Visigoths into Roman territory in the late 4th century. Originally displaced by the fearsome Huns to the east, the Visigoths sought refuge within the borders of the Roman Empire. The Roman authorities agreed to resettle them, but poor treatment and neglect led the Visigoths to rebel. In 410 AD, under the leadership of Alaric, the Visigoths marched on Rome and sacked the city, a catastrophic event that shook the Roman world to its core. Though the empire survived this humiliation, it marked a turning point, signaling that Rome was no longer invulnerable. Further invasions followed, most notably by the Huns, led by the infamous Attila. Attila's campaigns devastated large swathes of Roman territory, and while he was ultimately turned back, his invasions weakened the empire's hold on its territories and drained its resources. By the mid-5th century, the Western Roman Empire was in a state of near-constant crisis, its borders breached, its economy in shambles, and its political system irreparably fractured. The final blow came in 476 AD, when the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer, marking the official fall of the Western Roman Empire. The decadence of the Roman Empire did not happen overnight. It was the result of a combination of internal corruption, political disarray, economic strain, and relentless external pressures. The once mighty empire, which had dominated the Mediterranean world for centuries, found itself unable to cope with the mounting challenges. While the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, would continue to exist for nearly another millennium, the fall of the Western Roman Empire serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overexpansion, internal division, and the failure to adapt to changing circumstances. By the year 476 AD, the Roman Empire, once the most powerful force in the known world, was a shadow of its former self. The city of Rome, which had stood for over a millennium as the heart of a vast and powerful empire, was no longer the secure, thriving capital it once had been. The final blow came when the Visigoths, under the leadership of Alaric, sacked Rome in 410 AD, marking the first time in 800 years that the city had fallen to a foreign enemy. Though the city itself would survive this attack, it was a clear signal to the world that Rome's power was in terminal decline. By the mid-5th century, the Roman Empire was effectively divided between the eastern and western halves, with the Western Roman Empire becoming increasingly vulnerable to external pressures and internal collapse. The culmination of Rome's downfall came in 476 AD, when Romulus Augustulus, the last Roman emperor of the West, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. This event is often cited as the moment when the Western Roman Empire officially fell, marking the end of ancient Rome as a political entity. Romulus Augustulus, ironically named after the legendary founder of Rome, Romulo, and Augustus, its first emperor, was merely a teenager when he ascended to the throne. His rule was short-lived and ineffective, serving more as a puppet for barbarian generals than as a true ruler. Odoacer, leader of the Heruli, saw the instability in Rome as an opportunity and deposed Romulus without bloodshed, effectively ending centuries of Roman dominance in the West. After Romulus' fall, Odoacer declared himself king of Italy, pledging nominal loyalty to the Eastern Roman Emperor in Constantinople but ruling independently. The fall of the Western Roman Empire was not the result of a single catastrophic event but rather a long process of decay and fragmentation. The reasons for Rome's collapse are many and interwoven. First and foremost, corruption played a significant role. The Roman Senate, which had once been a revered institution, had by this point become a stagnant and self-serving body. Political offices were often bought and sold, with officials more interested in enriching themselves than governing effectively. The Roman military, once the envy of the world, had also deteriorated. In an effort to cut costs and defend its borders, the empire increasingly relied on mercenary armies composed of barbarian tribes, who were often more loyal to their own leaders than to Rome. Compounding the issue was the economic crisis that had plagued the empire for centuries. The Roman economy had become heavily dependent on the exploitation of its provinces, but over time, these territories became more difficult to manage and defend. Heavy taxation and constant warfare drained the empire's resources, leading to inflation, shortages of goods, and widespread poverty. The disparity between the rich and poor grew ever larger, with the wealthy elite consolidating their power while the lower classes suffered. The agricultural base, which had once fed the Roman populace and its legions, also began to falter, as overworked lands became less productive and frequent raids disrupted supply lines. One of the most significant causes of the empire's collapse, however, was the relentless pressure from barbarian invasions. Throughout the 4th and 5th centuries, Rome's borders were assailed by various Germanic tribes, including the Visigoths, Vandals, Franks, and Ostrogoths. These tribes, often displaced by the westward movement of the fearsome Huns, were pushed into Roman territory in search of safety and resources. While some were initially allowed to settle within the empire as federates, tribes permitted to live within Roman lands in exchange for military service. This arrangement often led to friction and rebellion. The sack of Rome by the Visigoths in 410 was followed by a devastating Vandal invasion in 455 AD, during which the city was plundered yet again. The Huns, under the leadership of Attila also wreaked havoc across Roman territories, though their invasions were eventually halted. Another major factor was the internal division of the Roman Empire. In 395 AD, the empire was officially split into two halves: the Western Roman Empire, governed from Rome and later Ravenna, and the Eastern Roman Empire, ruled from Constantinople. While the Eastern Empire, often referred to as the Byzantine Empire, was able to survive and even thrive for centuries after the fall of the West, the Western Empire was much weaker. The Eastern Empire had greater wealth, a stronger economy, and more defensible borders, while the West struggled with financial difficulties, depopulation, and barbarian invasions. The division of the empire meant that resources and attention were split, leaving the Western Empire vulnerable to external threats and internal decay. The collapse of the Roman Empire in the West had profound and far-reaching consequences for the Western world. In the immediate aftermath, there was a power vacuum in Europe. Without the centralized authority of Rome, the lands that once comprised the Western Empire fractured into a series of smaller, competing kingdoms. This period, known as the Dark Ages, saw a decline in urban life, trade, and literacy, as the infrastructure and administrative systems of the Roman Empire crumbled. However, while political unity in the West was lost, Roman culture and legacy endured. The Latin language, Roman law, and many aspects of Roman engineering, architecture, and administration would continue to influence Europe for centuries. The Catholic Church, which had risen in prominence during the latter years of the empire, played a crucial role in preserving Roman traditions and knowledge. As the Roman state disintegrated, the Church became a stabilizing force, assuming many of the administrative functions previously held by Roman officials. The Church also spread Roman ideas and institutions to the barbarian kingdoms that replaced the empire, ensuring that Roman civilization would continue to shape the future of Europe. Additionally, the Byzantine Empire, centered in Constantinople, would continue to carry the torch of Roman heritage for nearly another 1,000 years, preserving much of Roman law, culture, and political structure until its own fall in 1453. The fall of Rome in 476 AD marked the end of an era, but it was not the end of Rome's influence. The empire's legacy lived on in the laws, languages, religions, and institutions that it left behind, shaping the course of Western civilization for centuries to come. While the Western Empire may have collapsed, Rome's spirit and achievements remained a cornerstone of European identity, influencing everything from medieval kingship to the Renaissance, and even laying the foundations for the modern world. The fall of the Roman Empire serves as a reminder that even the greatest powers can fall, but their legacies can continue to shape the world long after their political collapse. The legacy of Rome is woven deeply into the fabric of the modern world. Even though the empire itself collapsed over 1,500 years ago, its influence continues to shape many aspects of our daily lives. Perhaps one of Rome's most enduring contributions is its legal system, which has provided the foundation for many modern legal frameworks. The principles of Roman law, such as innocent until proven guilty, trial by jury, and the right to face one's accuser, still resonate in today's courts. Rome's comprehensive legal code, known as the Corpus Juris Civilis, compiled during the reign of the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian, served as a basis for the development of civil law systems in Europe and beyond. Its influence can be seen in the laws of countries across the globe, including parts of Europe, Latin America, and even the United States. In the realm of architecture, Rome's innovations continue to inspire modern construction. Roman engineers perfected the use of concrete, enabling them to build structures that were not only grand but durable. The Colosseum, Pantheon, and countless aqueducts stand as testament to their engineering prowess. The use of arches, domes, and vaults in Roman architecture paved the way for future developments in building design, influencing everything from Renaissance cathedrals to contemporary public buildings. Today, we still see Roman architectural principles at work in government buildings, museums, and stadiums across the world. The very concept of creating monumental architecture to symbolize power and legacy was mastered by the Romans and continues to be adopted by modern societies. Rome's influence extends beyond law and architecture into the realm of governance. The Roman Republic, with its system of checks and balances, its Senate, and its concept of civic duty, laid the groundwork for modern democratic institutions. While the Republic eventually gave way to the Empire, the idea that the people should have a voice in government endured. Many of the founding principles of modern democracies, especially in the Western world, are rooted in Roman political philosophy. The very idea of representative government, where citizens elect officials to represent their interests, was a cornerstone of the Roman Republic and remains a core feature of modern democracies. Rome's experiment with governance, despite its ultimate failure, provided a blueprint for later civilizations to refine and adapt. But the legacy of Rome is not just about what it left behind. It's also about the lessons we can learn from its history. The rise and fall of the Roman Empire is a cautionary tale about the dangers of overexpansion, internal division, and unchecked ambition. Rome's transformation from a republic to an empire, and its eventual collapse, serves as a reminder that no empire, no matter how powerful, is immune to decline. The internal corruption, economic disparities, and external pressures that plagued Rome are issues that continue to challenge modern societies. As we navigate the complexities of global politics, economics, and governance today, Rome's history offers invaluable insights into the consequences of failing to address systemic problems before they spiral out of control. Another important lesson from Rome is the resilience of culture and ideas. While the Western Roman Empire may have fallen, its cultural legacy lived on through the Byzantine Empire in the East, the rise of the Catholic Church, and the spread of Roman ideals throughout medieval Europe. Even after the fall of political Rome, its language, Latin, became the lingua franca of educated people across Europe for centuries. The Renaissance, a period of intense cultural and intellectual revival in Europe, was directly inspired by a rediscovery of Roman art, literature, and philosophy. This demonstrates that while political systems may rise and fall, the ideas, culture, and innovations of a civilization can have a far more enduring impact. As we reflect on the enduring influence of Rome, we're reminded that history is not just a series of dates and events. It is a living narrative that continues to shape our world. From the layout of modern cities, inspired by Roman planning, to the philosophical and legal foundations of our institutions, Rome's presence is all around us. This connection between past and present is what makes the study of history so vital. It helps us understand not only where we've been but also where we are headed. We invite you to continue exploring the incredible stories of the ancient world with us. Rome is just one of many great civilizations whose legacies continue to influence us today. By studying the past, we gain insights into our present and the possibilities for our future. So, if you're fascinated by the rise and fall of empires, the power of ideas, and the enduring legacy of ancient cultures, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Stay with us as we journey through time, uncovering the mysteries, triumphs, and lessons of history's greatest civilizations. The story of ancient Rome is not just about emperors, wars, and monumental achievements. It's also filled with fascinating details that give us a deeper understanding of Roman ingenuity, daily life, and mysteries that continue to intrigue historians today. One of the most remarkable feats of Roman engineering was the construction of their roads. The Roman Empire boasted a network of over 400,000 kilometers of roads, with 80,000 kilometers paved in stone. These roads were meticulously built using layers of different materials for drainage and durability. Roman engineers would first dig a trench and then fill it with compacted gravel, sand, and stone. The top layer, made of flat stones, created a smooth surface for carts and soldiers to travel. Roman roads were so well built that many of them still exist today, some even serving as foundations for modern highways. The saying, "all roads lead to Rome," was not just a metaphor but a literal truth. These roads connected the far reaches of the empire, from Britannia to Egypt, facilitating trade, military movement, and cultural exchange. Another intriguing aspect of Roman history is the mystery surrounding Julius Caesar's tomb. After Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March in 44 BC, his body was cremated and his ashes were placed in a mausoleum located in the Roman Forum. Over the centuries, the exact location of his tomb became obscured, and today, only ruins remain. However, Caesar's legacy looms large, and his tomb site continues to attract visitors and archaeologists searching for clues about his final resting place. Interestingly, It was said that a comet appeared in the sky shortly after Caesar's death, which many Romans interpreted as a sign of his divine ascent. This celestial event reinforced the belief that Caesar was a god in Roman culture, leading to the later deification of emperors. Life in ancient Rome was full of contrasts, and the daily life of Roman citizens reflected the diverse experiences of those who lived within the empire. For the plebeians, daily life was centered around the insulae, cramped apartment buildings where space was scarce, and fire hazards were common due to the use of wood in construction. The wealthier citizens, known as patricians, lived in luxurious domus, which were private homes complete with atriums, courtyards, and intricate mosaics on the floors. Roman cuisine was as varied as the people who lived there. Garum, a fermented fish sauce, was a staple in Roman cooking, used to season a wide variety of dishes. Banquets were common among the elite, where they would indulge in exotic foods like peacock, dormice, and even flamingo tongues. For entertainment, Romans would gather at the public baths or visit the local theater to watch comedies, tragedies, and even gladiatorial games. Speaking of gladiators, one of the lesser-known facts about the Colosseum is the complexity of its underground structure, known as the hypogeum. Beneath the arena floor was a network of tunnels and chambers where gladiators prepared for battle, wild animals were kept, and stage sets were stored. Ingenious pulley systems allowed for the dramatic introduction of gladiators or animals into the arena, sometimes rising from trapdoors for the audience's delight. These spectacles were highly choreographed, and the Colosseum itself was an architectural marvel, capable of seating over 50,000 spectators who came to witness the games. The events were not merely for entertainment, they were also political, as emperors used them to display their power, gain favor with the people, and distract them from the empire's more pressing issues. Another captivating curiosity is the Roman water system. The aqueducts of Rome were a feat of engineering brilliance, transporting fresh water from distant sources into the city and supplying the famous Roman baths, fountains, and homes of the wealthy. The Aqua Claudia and Aqua Marcia are just two examples of the grand aqueducts that still stand today. Some aqueducts carried water over 50 miles, relying on precise calculations of gravity and slope to maintain a continuous flow. This access to fresh water was crucial to the city's health and sanitation, helping maintain the massive population of Rome, which reached over 1 million people at its height, unmatched by any city until the 19th century. Rome's impact on language is another fascinating fact. Latin, the language of the Romans, was not only the lingua franca of the empire but also the foundation for the Romance languages spoken today, including Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. Latin was used not only in daily communication but in the creation of legal, scientific, and religious texts. Even after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Latin continued to be the language of scholarship and the Catholic Church for centuries, influencing much of medieval and Renaissance thought. Lastly, one of the most enduring mysteries of ancient Rome is its ability to construct concrete that has lasted millennia. Roman concrete, or opus caementitium, was far more durable than most modern concrete. The Romans used volcanic ash in their mix, which made their concrete more resistant to cracks and degradation over time. Structures like the Pantheon, with its massive unreinforced concrete dome, still stand today as a testament to Roman engineering skill. Modern scientists are still studying the properties of Roman concrete to understand its longevity and apply those lessons to contemporary construction methods. These fascinating facts and curiosities are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to exploring the wonders of ancient Rome. From its advanced engineering feats to its complex social and political systems, Rome continues to captivate historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts alike. The more we uncover about this civilization, the more we realize how deeply its innovations and ideas have shaped the modern world. And if you're as fascinated by these stories as we are, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We have much more to explore, from the secrets of ancient Egypt to the rise of the Greek city-states, and beyond. Join us as we continue to dive into the incredible civilizations that shaped our history and our world.